I've been really excited to talk about this knife. This is one of my favorites. I carry it all the time in a very specific setting. Today we're going to be talking about the Dragonfly 2 in Salt Model H1 steel. This knife particularly I've had for the last 4 or 5 years. I've definitely put it through its paces, and it's quickly become, or had quickly become when I got it, my go-to for anything water related. If you're like me and you like to spend time on the water, whether that be saltwater, fishing, spear diving, any of the above, or you just like to, if you're more of a boater and you're spending your time, fishing from on shore, anything like that, or if you're just in an environment that has lots and lots of humidity, this is a knife that I would recommend to you. So this again is the Dragonfly 2 in H1 steel, and particularly in the serrated blade. So why this is my favorite is because of its resistance to corrosion. I have had no better steel or no better knife in general than this in terms of curtailing the issues that you get with being around moisture, specifically salt water. I've had plenty of dive knives, stainless steel, that were supposed to be corrosion resistant. You know what? They all eventually get some sort of spots on them. You'll see rust around the handle, things like that. This one's been in the water for literally hundreds of days on salt water. It shows zero sign of any type of corrosion problems whatsoever, and it's actually still razor sharp. So what we can really attribute that to is the nitrogen levels that are in this type of H1 steel, this H1 stainless. Really prevents corrosion well, even better than any other stainless I've ever had. But going beyond that, Spyderco's done a couple things to really make sure that the rest of the knife holds up just as well. So one thing in particular is that all of the rivets and pivot points, as well as the back locking material, they're all made out of non-corrosive materials. So while a typical Spyderco is going to have, maybe a little bit different material, here we've got a Delica in micro melt steel. The rivets on this one, the clip on this one, and the backing material on this one are all probably a slightly different material, and not necessarily generally focused on preventing rust, whereas this one absolutely is. So typical features of a Spyderco: it's going to have the big hole here, makes it really easy to open up. It's a liner lock. Again, I'll do that a couple times. You can open it this way. On heavier Spydercos, a lot of times you can grab it by the handle, push it down, it'll flip open. Kind of a quick open method. In this particular one, it's a little bit lightweight for that. So consider it a benefit. It's very lightweight. You forget it's in your pocket. It's something that's easy to keep on you all the time so that when you need it, it's available. Some of the things that I like about this in general, or this model, the Dragonfly 2, this is my favorite of all Spyderco models, and for a couple reasons. One is in terms of the size. It's a small knife, but it carries like a big knife. It's got plenty of room to hold the handle. I've got really big hands. I'm 6'5", and this handle still feels good in the hand. You can see that it's got jimping on the top and the bottom. Jimping is that rough surface there. And what that prevents you from doing is if you're doing any sort of jabbing method or stabbing method, which I often use this knife for in terms of spearfishing, I'll explain that in a minute, it prevents you from sliding over this and letting your hands slide down the blade. You can imagine that would be bad. And a lot of handles in common pocket knives, they just do not have that grip or that level of contour to really lock your hand in so that you feel comfortable. This also really it's a really good cutting position to gain control. You can see that I'm very close to the blade. I'm not far away from the blade back here holding it. I'm very close to the blade and I have ultimate control of it. This also allows, this style allows for several different grips. Oftentimes for fine work, I can grab it up here. My hand is still fits perfectly in the different knurls of this and in this grip. And then also there's plenty of scale on the sides here to provide grip, and you can actually see that because this one's a little bit old, maybe it needs a little bit of a cleaning. I've got some dirt and stuff in there from the years and years of use, but it has never let me down in terms of preventing me from my hand from slipping, or preventing me from slipping onto the blade or anything like that, or having this fall out of my hand. So The handle itself is phenomenal. This blade in particular is one of my favorites, and I want to talk about the study that I just recently read. So what the study talks about is H1 steel in particular. It's not the hardest steel. When you've got a knife like this that's micromeld steel, or you've got an SV30 steel, some of the more common day steels, those blade steels are designed to wear very slowly. This is a much softer steel, but what was very interesting about the study is it showed that while the plain blade, a non-serrated blade, was pretty soft and did lose its very fine edge rather quickly, the serrated blade actually outperformed many other much harder steels. And so that's really interesting that this particular blade steel just has an uncanny ability to remain sharp despite hard use. And the reason that I went with a serrated blade steel to begin with, and my designated waterman knife, is because of how often I end up needing to cut rope or cordage of sorts. And so obviously a more serrated blade is going to chomp through that cordage a lot faster than a straight blade, whereas a plain edge blade like I have here, I'm going to use for a lot of detail work or slicing, cookware or cooking related activities, prepping meals, woodwork, any of those kind of things where I want a really fine blade. This plain edge is great, but on the water, what I really want is something that's going to cut rope fast, and that's something that this, even though it's 4 years old and I've never once sharpened it, still does very well. So because of that, this has really become my ultimate EDC water knife. I do have several other fixed blade knives in the same steel that I use for spearfishing, but what I found is that I don't always have those knives on me. Sometimes I'm spearfishing and I forgot to put it on, or sometimes I'm still in the boat and I need to cut cordage quickly because we have a tangle in our line that's on the side of the boat, and I just need to reach for something and have it available then. Also, a lot of times I'm just kayaking. I'm not doing spearfishing where I need a particular style blade, and this knife works great for that. But the reason this one still works great for spearfishing is because of the shape of this point. The most common thing that you're using a dive knife in spearfishing for is to dispatch fish. You're actually inserting the tip of the blade into the skull and then twisting it in order to put the fish out of its misery with minimal discomfort. And this pointed blade, it's strong. It's not the thinnest. It's durable. It's not just going to fold over on you. I wouldn't necessarily pry with it, but if you did, it'd probably handle it somewhat well. If you had to open a scallop or something occasionally, I'm sure it would get by. But yeah, having this type of a tip allows me to go into the fish, dispatch it quickly, and still this just be in my pocket. So sometimes I'm even spearfishing and I forgot my dive knife, and just having this all the time from the moment I wake up, at the boat dock, putting the boat in the water, out on the water, fishing, need to open up a package, need to do this, that. This guy's always on me, and I can't tell you how much more use this gets than my dive knives do. Also, just back to that same high quality grip and this nice opener, I can blindly open this up. I don't have to fumble with it. I don't have to two-hand it. I can have one hand on a fish. I can flip this open. I can switch to a stabber mode and then do what I do. So for those reasons, this has become my absolute go-to knife in terms of any water situation, kayaking, even high humidity. If you live in Florida like I do and you're sweating because you're working outside, this is a fantastic knife. This is gonna resist that corrosion better than anything else out there. And so if you are looking for a Spyderco and you like to do a lot of things on the water, you consider yourself a waterman, I highly recommend this particular knife. Now they've got bigger ones, smaller ones, different shaped blades. This really is my go-to do-all, and I highly recommend it. So if you did like this review, I highly recommend you check out some of our other reviews for some of our other blades. But we're not just a knife review channel. We do a lot in terms of outdoor knowledge in general. So please check it out, like and subscribe.